Something I want to make perfectly clear is you need to use the same tape measure or whatever measuring device you have for the entire project. I just happened to use an older one right next to this year-old one. It doesn't matter how old they are, it literally does not matter. But manufacturers and styles, etc. The other tape measure was literally an 1/8 of an inch difference. So you need to make sure to use this same measuring tool throughout the whole process. Hope you didn't glue the center pieces on the top because for the router base, because I'm going to have to take these two off and mark the center line for this, and then put the screws down through it. So these particular screws you are going to want to make sure in sync so that that piece of wood can be put back in place right here on both sides. Okay, the outer frame is done. What I did was, like I said, I screwed these in from the top or bottom, however you want to look at it. I came in from that way. And then I took one set of support bars, used a bigger clamp. And okay, so I did that, one on each side. So then I I put the top on, and I did that on one side, on the same side. So then I put the other side on, the support bars, and once I got the bars in there and centered and everything was moving all right, I put the opposite screws in from the clamps. And now that all sides are done, you can see the bars are just hanging there from too much tension. They're too tight. They're too tight against the bars. But you know, it's wood against metal. The wood will wear out. And I'm sorry I didn't record any of this, putting this together. I freaking hate it when people do that. And I hypocrite did it myself. Anyway, the next step is going to be putting some corner braces in. You can do 4 corner braces just on the bottom, or you can do 8 braces, another 4 on the top. So I'm going to put these in and see how rigid it is. If I feel like I need more, I've got a smaller set waiting. These are 4-inch Everbuilt product. You can get them at any hardware store. And no matter what, pre-drill. That's pretty impressive. That's pretty rigid. So, by the way, the reason why I should have shown you what I was doing putting this frame together, you see how this screws, see the screw pattern here? That is going to allow these screws to go down the center. See, the one on the other side will be in here somewhere. Not that it's that long, but there's, you know, these can't touch it either. So anyway, that's why I use this pattern. Just far enough in so it won't crack the edges, plus pre-drill everything. So for now I will put the outer frame aside and work on the inner frame. Alright, so now I've got the inner frame bottom piece here, and I need this inner piece to be mounted right where it is. So I took the other piece that's going to go on the top, and I put this as a spacer for the vertical boards. So I will pre-drill from the bottom into this one, and the bottom into this one. When you screw down into that piece, it might shove out, so you might have to pull it back out and push it back in 2 or 3 times for it to actually grab any grain. Looks like it kept, or just went in. Alright, I came up with the solution of not making this too tight, and I'm just going to put this part of the video in the right spot so you don't make the same mistake. So I figure if you use drawing paper, or childhood construction paper, the thicker stuff, put one piece on each side of these bars, these rods. Then even if you do get them snug, once you get the paper out, it's going to be perfect instead of too tight like mine is. Okay, I'm going to show you a possible way of putting this frame together, the inner frame. So I have the bottom clamps holding. I got a couple of clamps holding the bottom in place. I could take one of the clamps out and start screwing that together, but what I'm going to do this time, and for no reason, is that I'm going to I've squared this block up with this piece here. I'm going to put one screw in it so that it'll pivot, and then I'm going to take that clamp off and put one screw in that one as long as and make sure that the rod will fit, and then go from there. This thing just doesn't seem very intelligent, but you know what? That's what I'm going to do. Alright, so this one bar is technically in place. I could either put this bar up, this vertical bar, or I can put this one into place because there's quite a bit of space here. I think I'm going to put this one in place so I have something to, make the bar square with. So before I pre-drill this one and make it permanent, I'm using a square. Try to get it at least somewhat close. Alright, so now I'm going to make the rest of them match this board. So I changed my mind a 50th time and squared up this board as well. So now this one particular side is square with this inner frame bottom piece. Now, what I'm not going to change my mind on. Okay, I got the board, I got the rod in here. I will put the second rod up here, and I will put each of these in here, and I will give it just enough leeway to where I don't have to crank, I don't have to shred it to move it. Alright, as with the outer frame, I've got the inner frame, I've got one side okay, so I've got one side done, so I'm going to make certain that the rod is snug without being too tight, and then I will put these two boards on this side in place with screws. So on the second side, once you get the first screw in on the bottom, do one on the top. That way nothing's going to move once you get those two in. So what I did was I put a clamp here to hold up this rod in place so that I could screw in the other piece. Well, I used this kind of clamp and it ended up pushing this board over. So since these screws are on the wrong side to begin with, I'm going to take these out, re-drill from the side they were supposed to be on opposite spots, and then make sure the rod is at least a little snug. What I was getting at is use a clamp with a flat surface so that it doesn't squeeze itself into the other board. I don't know if I showed it enough to actually for you to catch what I did. I wasn't paying attention, and I put that side over here instead of back here. So I ended up splitting one of the boards, redoing it, but I'm hoping it's going to be alright. Next step, I'm going to put the top piece on. Going to use the smallest screws I can find to actually work, because I'm assuming this is going to be replaceable. I'm going to pre-drill holes on this inner frame top. Eventually I'm going to kill that darn fly. I'm going to try to get this as square as possible. And I'm going to drill, let's see, I should probably drill into this horizontal piece, but I'm afraid I'm going to hit these screws. Let's see. So I'm going to use 1-inch screws. These are wood screws. They're thicker. I have to get a thicker drill bit. Alright, so if I put it in the right spot, I can go into this horizontal piece here, which I think it would be best. So that's what I'm going to do. So I measured where the best spot is to drill here, and that's 1 inch in. In that spot. Since those screws were freehand, it's going to be different on each one. Especially after I start twisting and lining up things. I'm going to want this screw flush, I think, so I'm going to turn up the drill. May have to go in a little deeper, we'll see. So now that this side is screwed in on both ends on that side, I'm going to do a final measurement on the vertical support beam here. This side is squared up with my, oh good lord, fly is starting to tick me off. Okay, I'm really getting mad at that fly. Anyway, so this clamp is holding this in place. Putting it up here, and I'm using a pencil to mark off where it needs to be cut. Alright, I have the center support clamped in place and I'm going to drill into it, and it's going to go through here and go into the support. The screw will end up inside there, so I should take it apart and you know, put the screw in there nice and neat, but I've had enough things fall apart on me that, yeah, I'm just not going to do that. I'm just going to put it in the way it is. Again, going to make sure everything is lined up the way it should be. Yeah, I wonder why that one went down. Still had it on drill mode. Now, make sure that board is centered. Oops. I'll put a couple of screws, one here, one over here, hold that board down. Alright, so I put them, you know, a certain distance apart. Not really, I didn't measure it, but just basically equalized everything. Make sure and pre-drill, like I've been saying, and you might want to countersink these heads. Make absolutely certain that they're not going to catch anything, because this is going to be your work surface. When you hear the thread chewing the wood, you know you got it too tight. Alright, so the top rod is only used when you want everything flat and you're just setting stuff up. So there'll be the fretboard that you're working on is going to be up in between here, so this will never be that tall or that high. Anyway, so that's where that rod goes. And now the one with the knobs is going to go down here. And again, you need these pieces to be snug against the thread, but not as quick as I got them. If they're not snug, your work is going to be extremely sloppy. But if they're this tight, everything's going to wear out quickly. Alright, the main body work is done, so now I'm going to work on the height adjusters. I'm going to need 6 height adjusters, which means I'm going to need 12 plates and 12 body blocks. Alright, so the body blocks are going to be 2 7/16 inch by 3/4 by 3/4. Okay, so what I have here is a piece of hardwood 1.5 inches wide by 3/4 inches thick. So what I did was I cut 1 3/4, backed out of the saw after I shut it off. Then I cut from the other up from the outside so that each one has at least one good surface. And then I cut the lengthways. What I can end up doing is just making one line all the way along the board, cut through that line, and then chop it up. This is going to be my 12th step on the woodworking, or the wood cutting, so I'm writing a 12 on each one. Pieces with the knots, you're probably going to have to cut them out and not use them, because that's going to be nothing but trouble. You won't be able to screw through those or drill through those without having a lot of issues. So just cut that section out. This was 1.5 inch wide board by 3/4, and it took about 20 inches of board for the 12 pieces on a bandsaw. It might take more if you do it on a table saw, depending on the size of your thickness of your blade. So now I need 12 plates that are 5 5/16 by 2 7/16 by 1/4 inch. So I've got this 1x4. I'm gonna try to cut that up on the bandsaw, and it really shouldn't take very much of the board whatsoever.